war came to by surprise. The dirty smell of the politician and the man with the greed in his eyes. One big union, that's our plan. And the IWW is your only.
I'm here at the Coast Guard Cultural Centre, and I'm privileged to be joined by one of the most influential Irish traditional musicians, Andy Irvine, who's just played for us. Andy, what can you tell us about the concert that you just performed?
Well, I love this place. You know, this is about the fourth or fifth time I've been down here in the last 12 or 15 years, and it's a perfect gig because it's kind of small, but it's acoustic. You know, I used a microphone just as an ambience microphone just to amplify my general sound, but it's basically an acoustic gig, which is always nice for a change because it makes the thing much more informal.
Yeah.
And I could. It was like being. I mean, I was up on the stage performing, but it was actually like being part of the crowd. They were so good, and they were so kind of enthusiastic and so giving me a lot of.
I know what you mean. That energy.
Yeah, they give me a lot of energy. Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. I thought the energy of the gig was quite warm and intimate, and even at that, like some of the tunes which you would have performed, there was a definite sense of involvement in there.
Yes, well, I mean, like yourself, you knew a lot of the words, sang along.
Yeah, well, I tried at least. Well, there was a couple of ones that I had noticed while you were performing. You had done a couple of tunes that were Australian in origin. What is it that allures you towards the Australian tunes?
Well, I've been going to Australia for 30 years now, usually about once a year. I'm very fond of the place, or not as fond of it as I used to be, because the politics there are absolutely as bad as they are in the rest of the world. But I have a lot of friends there, and I know a lot of singers, and I just got interested in the Australian folk music canon, as indeed before that I'd got interested in the American folk music canon. So
fantastic.
You know, they're all songs in the English language, and they're all grist for my mill. I was going to say mist for my mill.
Brilliant. And another tune that you did that I've very much so enjoyed, and I can honestly tell you it's the first time I've heard it, was the one that you performed about Houdini.
Oh yeah, well that's my latest magnus opus. My latest masterpiece. But I'm kind of proud of that song because I don't think anybody's probably ever written a song about Harry Houdini before, and it came to me the core or the hook line at the end of the chorus came to me. I remember exactly where it came to me. It came to me in sitting in the car driving through Manorhamilton in County Leitrim. I suddenly thought, if it could be done, Houdini done it.
Yeah, and of course it was in 7/8, which was so unusual.
Well, it was just a drop beat, in fact.
But what I'd like to ask is, when you were going to write this piece of music, did you intentionally think to yourself, you know, I'm going to do this in an unusual time signature? I'm going to use something like 7/8, or was it a case of you thought of the hook line and then the time signature would have came to you?
Well, you know, it's hard to remember, but I seem to remember there were a lot more places where I dropped a beat in the song originally when I sang it, and then somebody said, you know, it'd be a lot stronger if you only dropped the beat on the punchline of the chorus, and they were absolutely right. So I straightened up the rest of it and just dropped that beat on. If it could be done, Houdini done it.
Yeah, fantastic. And of course, one of the things that yourself and Johnny Moynihan would have done would have been to bring Eastern modes and Eastern instruments, of course, to Ireland. For example, the bouzouki. Can you tell us about some of the instruments that you would have played this evening and how they would differ from?
Well, there's no difference in the actual fingering of any of those instruments we're looking at on the stage. They're still there, all five of them. But the one that looks like a guitar is, I suppose you'd have to call it a guitar bouzouki. It has 8 strings and it's tuned. the regular way that the Irish bouzouki is tuned, which is G-D-A-D from the bottom up. There's an octave mandola there, which is also tuned G-D-A-D, but with the octave strings on the two bottom courses and a much shorter neck, much easier to play, rather than stretching all the way to the end of the fretboard on the guitar bouzouki. There's another bouzouki which I call the pretty bouzouki, because it has a more delicate sound than the guitar bouzouki. There's a bass bouzouki.
Yes.
And there's the mandola, and it's rather annoying that I have to bring all five of them. But I just, I could bring two instruments and get away with just playing two instruments. But for my own satisfaction and for the audience's satisfaction, I just prefer to have the right instrument for the right song.
I completely agree with you, because when I play. Obviously, I'd play some of the stuff that you would have done with Paul Brady, who I'd find to be one of my favourite musicians, and D-A-D-F sharp A-D, and Dadgad, of course, and all the open tunings that I would do, along with open G, and I'd have the E-A-D G-B-E, and I would do the same. I'd bring several instruments, but the one that I found most fascinating this evening was definitely your bass. Your bass bouzouki.
Yeah, well, the bass bouzouki here is plugged into because there's no amplification, is plugged into my amp, which is behind my chair, because the bassness of it doesn't quite come out if I just play it acoustically. It's got a magnetic pickup in it, and that kind of brings out the bass a bit more. There's no point in having a bass bouzouki if the bass is kind of
in a song, for example, like O'Donoghue's, you mentioned how you would have been, you would have played with, and you would have had influence from, and even influenced some of the most important musicians in Ireland. For example, Luke Kelly, and you would have played, of course, with Paul Brady and Donal Lunny, and some of the biggest musicians that probably Irish traditional music has seen in modern days. How can you say? Did that ever become intimidating? Did you understand at the time what was happening, and do you think that could happen again?
Well, I'm sure it could, but you're never aware of what's happening at the time it's happening. The Dubliners became big news in about 1964, I suppose, in Ireland anyway. But I knew them before that. They were my friends, and so no, I wasn't intimidated at all. I mean, Ronnie could be a bit odd, but no.
He had a voice like gravel that would cut you too, I heard.
cut you in two, yeah. But no, Luke was sound as a bell. He was a grand man. The only problem with Luke was he used to get drunk quite quickly and fall asleep.
Andy, thank you very, very much for doing the interview with me. I appreciate it enormously. You're sowing dreams with what you're doing. You really, really are.
Well, thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure.
Thank you.